Okay, let's catch up with your team news first and foremost. And what's the report on Lachlan Coote?
Yeah, so Lachlan's getting a scan this afternoon. Obviously, with the public holiday yesterday, we couldn't get him in for a scan, so he's actually getting that this afternoon, and we'll know a little bit more. But yeah, he definitely won't play. So I'm sure it'll be a 2-3 week injury, but that's only us sort of looking at the injury on the eye. But he needs to obviously get a scan, and we'll know more details later on.
Yeah, is the prognosis probably a torn hamstring?
Yeah, there've been definitely a strain or a tear in there. Just depends how significant, and then obviously that'll determine how long it is.
Yes. Have you got any other worries?
No, not at this stage, mate. Everything else is okay. So yeah, pretty much we just had a good session then, and obviously it was just Lachlan from the weekend.
And Jordan, is there any update on him as to the length of time he's likely to be out?
Yeah, no, he'll still be a good, 5 to 6 weeks. It was a decent tear there, so we just need to take our time with him. But yeah, he's feeling good, but that's what happens when you tear your quad after a week and the soreness goes away. You think you're flying, but you're not. So he's got a long way to go. When I say a long way, it'll be another 5-6 weeks.
A bit of a blow that in terms of this time last week, you didn't think it was anything much, did you?
No, we didn't, because the way he did it passing, and didn't look too bad. And he sort of said afterwards, I didn't feel too bad, just feel a little, something sort of pull. And when you hear that, usually it's not too bad. But obviously he's had some issues there in the past. And then like always, mate, a scan will tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, it doesn't hide that, does it? The one thing about years gone by, you could guess. You don't have to now, do you?
No, you don't. That's right. And that's why, mate, because we probably had him out for 2 weeks, and then the scan tells us it's 6 weeks. So yeah, no, as I say, initially we knew it was going to be a decent little injury. After he got the scan, it just basically said, yeah, it's a 6 week injury.
It's a bit of a blow that for him, because after a slow start, he started to come good. He's had a couple of injuries this season, notably a head knock as well. It just seems that when he wants to get going, he can't get going because he gets injured.
Yeah, look, he had obviously a major injury last year with his quad, and then he had a really strong preseason. So I suppose, mate, it's you can never, in our game, you just never know when your sort of next injury's coming. Head knocks, obviously, we're trying to minimise that in the game altogether. But it's going to happen where you are going to hit, have head injuries. Hopefully never too serious, but so it's a contact sport, so he's going to have, he's going to pick that up. But it's more around the quad issue. How much did he do last week? How he couldn't do a great deal because he was coming back from the HIA. So that a lot of that comes into it, and we're pretty, we're very thorough, not pretty thorough. We're very thorough in terms of how much running that we do, because you can not do enough sometimes, and then you can do too much. So we've had a couple, but we haven't had anything that we can say, well, this is not working, or we need to change that. It's just sometimes it happens to individuals, but he's certainly getting in the right direction.
Okay, with Coote being out, and with Will Dagger and Will Tate having left the club, does that leave you a little bit light in the fullback role?
Up until last week, so we had some plans, of what we think. We've got Phoenix, Ethan, and then obviously Mikey played last week. There's no doubt. When you lose Dags, when he moved over to Wakefield, the fullback spot in terms of depth, was going to be, I suppose, impacted a little. There's no doubt about that. But obviously, we saw what Mikey can do at fullback, and then we've got Ethan Ryan, who I think, would be a good fullback as well, and Phoenix. So we've still got some options there. Obviously, you don't want to get too many injuries like any team, but we've still got some depth there.
So what are your options this week? I mean, Mikey went well there, but you do lose something from the halves if you move him back. Does that play into your selection process for the game against Warrington?
Yeah, so we've had both players, so Ethan and Mikey, train there today. So it'll be out of one of those two that will play. We'll make the final decision later on the week, but both of those guys have had reps there. And then as coaching staff will have a look at it and make a decision.
Well, Ethan Ryan, lost his place early in the season. So he'll be chomping at the bit to get back there, won't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ethan put himself back in the picture. So we did play him at fullback in training. This is about sort of 4 or 5 weeks ago. And then he was standing out. He was training really well. So I thought, hey, that's there's a really good option in terms of, as we spoke before, around our depth, because we've had Phoenix there as well. Now it gives us some genuine options. And then obviously Mikey playing on the weekend gives us another option. So, but Ethan Ryan certainly put himself in the picture from the way he's trained, the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks, mainly at fullback.
He's very good at running the ball back as well, and from fullback, the yards that he makes when he fields the kick is yards you don't have to make later on in the set, isn't it? Does that come into play? Yeah,
absolutely. That's what I like about him. He puts his foot down straight away. There's some fullbacks out there that catch and they'll have a look, and by the time they've had a look and feeling themselves out a little bit, the defensive line's on them. So they're not eating as many meters, where Ethan's the opposite. He'll just put the foot down straight away. And I can tell you the front row is like that because they don't have to come back as far. But that's why, he's a genuine chance and option for this weekend.
And Phoenix, of course, when you look at Phoenix, he's still a young lad and doesn't have the experience that Ethan Ryan does. Does that come into play in your thoughts as well?
Yeah, absolutely it does. So with Phoenix, so we've just re-signed Phoenix for another 2 years. It's all about development. So Phoenix is only 20 years of age. What can happen is you can put players like that into a Super League team and against quality opposition, and it can hurt them. And then if they don't start the way you hoped or they hoped, or then their careers can take a spiral. So you need to manage a guy like Phoenix, who's a talented young player. You need to manage him so you make sure that he's ready. So even though he's played a couple of games last year, we had a number of young blokes play games last year, but that doesn't make you a Super League player. You need to, train year in, year out. As I said to him, he needs to just keep developing. Training against the current first team is doing that. He needs to be hungry for it. And when he gets his opportunity, he'll be ready to go. So it's about sort of drip feeding Phoenix in when we can. It's definitely not about rushing him because, we see him as a player of the future, but we just need to manage him right.
Well, when you're talking about managing a young player, you've got to manage the frustrations of him wanting to play and the expectations of it and the disappointments, which sometimes can be quite hard on a young player, can't it?
It can, certainly. But what I'd always put back to that would be, I'd rather have a 10-year career, 12-year Super League career than go in too early and then you're not ready for it. Myself, I had some experience around that. I got thrown in at 18 and it was daunting when you're not ready for it. But I want to be able to, manage Phoenix the best way possible. And if that's having some conversations and some straightforward conversations around where he's at the moment, what he needs to work on, I'd feel better as a coach doing that and then looking at a person and a player that can play a 10-year career than put him in too early and then he's not ready for it. But also, mate, you've got to earn it. You need to earn it. Like we handed out jerseys last year because we had to due to injuries, and there was a number of players there that played 1 or 2 games. And no disrespect, but that's sometimes they're going to be, that's their limit. That's where they're at. They'll only play 1 or 2 games. So for me, anyone in our squad, I'd rather develop them the best way possible, and then they earn that jersey to the point that we need to pick them. And I've had some situations this year where guys probably weren't in the picture, but what they did at training, and Ethan Ryan's a perfect example, what he did at training then made us go, hey, he needs to be in the picture here for a fullback option.
Okay. Can I just talk to you about players coming out of contract, and have you had any updates on players like Kane Lynette and SKD and people like that?
Yeah, so the experienced guys, the older guys, we're having ongoing conversations at the moment. So they're ongoing. Sean Kennedy, Lachlan Coote, Kane Lynette. So they're ongoing at the moment. So players, so obviously Ethan Ryan is looking at some other opportunities, as is Jimmy Kindhorse for next year.
So do you expect them to move? Do you?
Yes, they will be next year. And the other one is Sam Wood. So Sam and I have had some open good conversations the last couple of weeks, and both agreed it's probably best that he looks at other opportunities. Sam wants to be a first team centre each week, and if that opportunity is somewhere else, then we both thought that was probably the best thing for him. So no doubt he's looking at opportunities for himself for next year.
Does Corey Hall coming into the picture sort of close that door a little bit for Sam?
Yeah, certainly. It's Corey Hall's a player of the future, and Sam's Sam's a very good player as well, and he's going to be for the rest of the year for us. So you have to make decisions. There's no doubt about that. When you get a young player coming in of Corey's talent, you need to make some decisions. So, I couldn't guarantee Sam Wood that he was going to be a starting centre. I like to be upfront and honest now, because I wouldn't want to have those conversations next year when he's got expectations and my vision sort of a little bit different. So, as I say, we had some really good, honest conversations, and just both agreed it's probably best that he does look at other opportunities so he can play first team every week. And, wish him all the best when that time comes. But at the moment, he's done nothing but put his head down, train hard, and he's talking in team meetings. So it'll crack on as per normal.
When you talk about Kane Lynette, Coote, and Sean Kenny Dow, how important is it that you get the decisions earlier rather than later about whether they're going around again to give you the opportunity to rebuild and replace if it's the case that they don't go around? Yeah,
we need to have or make that final decision on both sides, sooner rather than later. There's no doubt, and that's why we're having some good conversations now, to come to outcomes on each player. So, we'll be able to tell you more in a couple of weeks' time, within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say, for sure, on each player. And then, and then it's time to either look another direction or players are staying on. But, yeah, those conversations are ongoing. They've been open and honest, and, we're getting some good traction with it.
Have you got any indications that you can give us? Because obviously the fans would view those 3 players as, integral, and we'll be very interested to know whether that was the case that they were staying, because they have been an integral part and are an integral part of the team this season.
They are, mate. But I'll give you, once I know, like we can give you the exact, this is what they're doing, then I'll let the fans know for sure, mate. But at the moment, as I say, we're ongoing conversations, and when it's time to go, this is what they're doing, or this is what the decision is, then I'll let you know.
How are you looking with identifying any recruits that you might want to bring in, Willie?
Yeah, so that's obviously ongoing as well. So we're looking at opportunities, in England and obviously in the NRL. So they're ongoing as well.
See, there's been a bit of talk about John Bateman, hasn't there, coming back to this country? Is there anything in that?
John Bateman? I haven't heard of John Bateman. I think he just signed a 3 or 4 year deal.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I just wondered.
No, I haven't heard that one, mate.
All right. That's okay. It might be me getting the wrong end of the stick. I read too much of it on Australian websites.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard John Bateman. I think he obviously just went over last year. So, and I think he did. I think it was a 3 or 4 year deal. So, I'm not sure with that.
Yeah. Right. Let's talk about the game then. And geez, you were unlucky in the first game against Warrington, weren't you?
Oh, look, you make your own luck. There's a saying, you get what you deserve. I think we didn't deserve to win that game. I think we deserved to put ourselves in the picture because we had a really good second half. But if you have a look at that first 20 minutes of that game, we'll lose. And we probably lost the game there. And then we weren't too far at halftime in terms of the scoreboard, but we weren't anywhere near that we needed to be. But I was really proud of that second half. And I think, mate, when you have a look back closely at the turn or the performances that we've produced, I'll put it down to that second half, the Warrington game. And I know I've said it before, but that flowed into the Catalans game. And if people watch that game closely, they'll understand what I'm saying, because it was 26-12 in that game, but it should have been 50-12, the situation we're in. But I was really proud of what we did in that second half of the Warrington game, and then obviously into the Catalans game. And then we've gone on, a good little run. But for me, it started in the second half of the Warrington game. So what we need to do is put two of those halves together now, because we're playing against a side that's leading the comp for a reason. After 11 rounds of the season or whatever it is, there's no fluke that they're winning the comp. They're winning the comp for a reason. So we need to put that second half, put that into a full game, and we'll put ourselves in a decent position then.
No side can play at the top throughout an entire season, and Warrington have lost 2 out of the last 3 games. Does that give you encouragement going there?
What gives me encouragement, Gwilym, is probably, mate, what we did last week. We had a bit of chaos in that game. Obviously we lost Jordan before the game, and then we lost Lachlan. They're 2 key players in your spine. So anyone that loses 2 key players in the spine, one before the game and one pretty much, whatever it was, first 10 minutes of the game, it's going to cause some disruption. But then to go on and nil, a quality team like Huddersfield, that's what gives me, confidence in going to Warrington. It's not what they're doing, because I know, just looking at what Daryl Powell's comments were after the game, that they're not overly happy the way they played last week, and they've probably had that spell where you do drop off a little bit, but they're still winning the comp. So we know that they'll come. Their place, they are difficult to play there. But again, mate, I'm going to get some confidence and belief in what our players have been doing, especially last week in defence, to keep Huddersfield to nil. That's what gives me a little bit of confidence going over.
Well, certainly they have the creativity, don't they, to be able to prize sides apart, and getting a nil and your defensive efforts this season must give you some sort of confidence that whatever they throw at you, you've got the resilience to repel it.
Yeah, I'd like to think that, mate. I think, after 11 rounds, we have been consistent with that. So you'd like to think now that's a habit. We've created that habit. And once you create a habit like that, that's who you are and that's what you do. So, if we don't do that, then that becomes out of character of who you are and what you're doing. So as a coach and coaching staff, there's an expectation there now, because the players have shown that they can do it and they enjoy doing it. They enjoy working hard for each other. There's a really close, connected group here. I said that at the start of the year. We're a connected group, and I was just hoping that transferred on the field, and it's certainly transferring in our defence. And that's where you usually see a side that's connected off the field. You usually see that through their defence, and it's pleasing we're seeing that. But, mate, it's only early. It's still round 11, so we've got a lot of work ahead of us, that's for sure, and that starts on Friday against a very good team. How do
you guard against a dip during the course of a game, or during the course of a half or something like that? Because you've said it yourself, Willie, that you want a complete game. Have you seen a complete game from your side this season?
No, you're right. I actually said to the players, in our session, we didn't have the perfect session. Was there a drop ball? Yes, there was. There was a missed tackle, but we're going to get that this week. So you're right. We're not going to have the perfect or the complete game. You strive for it and you aim for that. That's what you want. But like anything, it's how you react to it. I think we've reacted in the right way when things haven't gone our way. But when it comes to momentum swings and changes in games, we've trained for that. We like to think the players are ready for that type of thing. But on the other hand, you want to start fast and you want to keep that momentum going for the whole game. So in terms of a complete performance, you know, I go back to last week. I just thought we defended extremely well last week. I thought, you know, playing against a quality team, as I said, like Huddersfield, who've got some individual players. You have a look at that spine. Like I know at the moment they're probably not, you know, connecting as well as what, you know, Ian Watson's openly sort of said it, but that'll come because they're gifted players. So what we were obviously concerned about was the threat of their individuals, which they've got a lot of. And you got to handle that. And I thought we handled that extremely well. So, and that won't change this week. I mean, you go up against a guy like George Williams. He's at you the whole time. You know, they've got a number of players that do that, but there's no doubt George is a significant part to their team. And we need to watch him. We need to be on our game again this week.
Another one that I would identify as well is Stefan Ratchford as well. A bit of a jack in a box. Good kicker. So you can't give cheap penalties away.
Yeah.
But with ball in hand, he's done it for years and years, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely he has. You know, and playing centre, he doesn't look out of position there. He's, you know, like you say, he bounces round. He'll find himself on that left edge and then bouncing around through the middle. So you need to stick on him. We need to handle him. But there's a number of players that we can go through. There's two that we've just mentioned then. But we certainly need to win the middle because that's where they beat us in the middle last time. There's no doubt about that. And I think the last sort of 5 or 6 weeks, well, definitely the last 6 weeks, we probably won that middle third. And there's no coincidence that we've been in the right end of the scoreboard when we've done that.
And you've also had to play against the 14th man on the field, which has been the weather, which has been absolutely atrocious, hasn't it? It'd be nice to play in some conditions where the ball wasn't greasy and you could actually play some free-flowing rugby league. Yeah,
I think everyone's looking forward to that. I suppose the positive for me as a coach is we've adapted really well. There was a game, you know, the Catalans game actually that we didn't handle the conditions too well, effort-wise, and the way we work for each other. That was spot on, and the way we competed, but we didn't handle those conditions well there. That's a game that stood out, but we learned from that. So we've handled the conditions well. So to be honest, mate, like, if it does rain now, then I'm comfortable, but I'd love to see some sunshine so we can all see, you know, the whole competition, some open rugby, what everyone loves to see. And that'll come. And then obviously teams will open up a little bit more once that happens.
One final question to you. You're on a winning run, and winning becomes a habit. You don't want to let losing become a habit, do you?
No, you don't. Absolutely, mate. You know, you build confidence and belief in winning. But you can also build it as well when you're not on the right end of the scoreboard, which we did when we had that, you know, those 3 losses. But certainly, mate, you want to go out to win every game. You know, there's no it is about performing well, and if you perform well, you'll win. You're not always going to win, but certainly winning feels a lot better than losing. Certainly.
Willie, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much. Best of luck for Friday.
Cheers, Gwilym. Thanks, mate.
Hiya, Willie. How's things?
Hey, Joe. Good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. I just wanted to mention James Batchel. Obviously, you're quite big on milestones. That game last week was his 100th in Super League. How was he getting along? Because he seems to have just bolstered that right-hand side with Tom Opacek. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. He's a player which I valued at the start of the year, you know, when we signed him, but I knew what we were going to get with him. And what I'm pleased about is now you know, the fans and the people that watch the game, he's getting the accolades he deserves, because sometimes those type of players, like, you know, your Dean Hadleys and James Batchelors and those type, they can go on the radar a little bit. But, you know, certainly, mate, what you've seen and what we've all seen is, you know, he's starting now to get the accolades that he should do. He's a player that all the players want to play with. You know, he's vocal in our team meetings. He speaks, you know, when he needs to, and when he speaks, it all makes sense. But the best part about Batch is what he does through his actions. And, you know, as I say, mate, he's a player that we value.
And back to obviously the contract situation that Gwilym spoke to you about. Have you found that tough, especially with the way the team are performing as well? Because as a coach, if your team are struggling, it might be quite easy to think you need to chop and change. But the way your team are going, that probably adds a bit of a tricky situation for you as well.
Yeah, certainly. I suppose it is for all head coaches. It's obviously my first year this year and first, crack at, Super League, coaching Super League. So it's obviously exciting when you first start, and it's what you've always wanted to do. And I still love it, no matter what. You know, I love rugby league and I love coaching, but I'll be honest, the side that's not enjoyable is when you got to have conversations about people's future. So what I've always wanted to do and always said is I'll have those conversations and be open and honest as I can, nice and early, so then everyone knows, you know, what direction they're going in. Because at the end of the day, mate, they go home to their families and they got kids and they need to plan and organise as well, like all of us, you know. So I fully respect that. And as I said to you, mate, we've had some conversations with players that unfortunately, you know, they're not going to be here next year, but we need to keep planning for our future as a club, and we need to keep strengthening positions that we need to strengthen and get more depth in certain areas. And, you know, we need to strive to where we want to go. So, and that doesn't mean the players that let go aren't good players or they're not, you know, they're not Super League players. That just means that, you know, for 2024, that they're not part of our plans, but certainly they'll be part of other teams' plans. And you know, once they do announce where they're going, and as I say, we'll wish them all the best. But I've seen nothing but you know, players just putting their head down and working hard. I think that comes back to just being honest with them.
Definitely. Perfect. Best of luck Friday, mate. See you there.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Hey, Willie. How you doing?
Hey, James. Good, mate.
I couldn't find the unmute button then.
I was waiting for you to speak.
Yeah, just on overall on your time in charge, what's the biggest improvement you've seen since you arrived in September?
Just with the team itself, or
yeah.
Probably the belief, mate. I was pretty open about that when I first got here. I definitely saw, I suppose, cracks or areas, or just, you know, I saw a team that when it on their day, you know, we could play well and go on and win games, but then there was certain conversations that I could hear and were happening around going to different places. Oh, it's hard to win there, or you can't win here, or, you know, conversations around that. They don't happen anymore. So what you needed to do is you need to have evidence behind you, so you get confidence, you get belief. And our evidence was always around what we did in the preseason for that first game. Now our evidence, you know, is around the first 11 games. But as I said before, we've done nothing, absolutely nothing in terms of where we want to get to. But the belief within the groups, you know, a big standout for me. And the other one, mate, is no doubt is our defence. We were an attack-focused team previously, and we made some changes around that to fall in love with defence, because, you know, for me, a defence is a sign of what your team is and who you are. Our fans are, you know, they're resilient people, you know, they're hardworking, they're working class people, and that's what we want to do through our defence. We want to replicate that through what we do in our defence. So they're two areas for me, mate, that stand out.
Have you sensed some mentality shift as well in terms of previously maybe they'll dine out on a win for a week or two, whereas now they've got a real hunger to go on and win games back to back like you have been doing?
Yeah, and I think that's driven from, you know, we've got some strong leaders here, very, very good leaders. So, you know, we've obviously had that in the past, but I can only talk about what I've seen and heard this year. So pretty much it's, you know, about keeping our feet on the ground, and we don't ever want complacency to creep in, because it can happen. It can change so quickly. There's no doubt about that. And we're only 11 rounds in. We've got you know, there's such a long part of the season to go, and Challenge Cup games are coming up and all that sort of thing. So what we do, you know, look for is just being consistent at training, and we don't change too much of what we're doing week to week in terms of the levels at training and that type of thing. We may shift a little bit depending on how they're looking and feeling, but we're consistent in how we approach.
Yeah, I know you're trying to stay grounded, but you could go top on Friday. Is that a statement you'd like to make as a group?
Oh, look, I think for us, it's, I'll be honest, mate, we've never once spoken around, you know, we're in the top four now, or we win this game, we're going to go to first. And those conversations, you know, we won't have those either this weekend. We've certainly got some targets and areas that we've got internally that we want to reach each game. If we reach that, then you're a big chance of winning the game. So we will focus more in on that. And then if we tick that off, then you put yourself in a good position at the end of the game.
Yeah. Have you seen enough in the group to leave you confident that you can last the pace, go 27 rounds and beyond?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything to tell me otherwise. We need to manage the players. We need to, obviously, this, as I say, there's such a long part of the season to go. So there's going to be some ups. There's going to be some downs. I'd love to win every game from here on in, but, it's unlikely that it's going to happen. So you're going to have some dips somewhere along the line. There's no doubt about that. Again, it's how you react to that, how you manage that. But we don't talk about losing games. We just talk about our processes and getting those right, and then the outcome will look after itself.
From what you've seen of the competition in the first 11 rounds, is a top 2 finish achievable, do you think?
Too far to say. Yeah, it is. I mean, again, mate, we want to strive for that, but it's such a long time to go. Like if you say, we've got 4 or 5 rounds to go, and we're in this position, then we'd look at it and say that's where we want to be. But way too long. There's too much ahead to look at all that.
But based on what you've seen, do you think you belong where you are at the moment, up towards that top end?
We definitely belong there, because if you have a look at, the top 2 in attack and top 2 in defence, we're the second for both. So I remember saying, before the season started, usually from round 10 onwards, that's when you get trends on teams and where they're at. So again, like I said about Warrington, it's no fluke they're number 1, but it's no fluke where we are as well. It's been a lot of hard work put in. The players have worked extremely hard, and we've worked hard on our defence and our attack, and then put ourselves in a good position on both, which then puts you in a good position in the overall table. So when I said, you get what you deserve, we deserve to be second or third at the moment. But we need to maintain that for the next 15 weeks or whatever it is.
It's an exciting period as well. Like you've said, the Challenge Cup next week, I think it is, and then Wigan the week after. So it must be exciting times, especially for you in your first coach role.
Yeah, definitely. Challenge Cup was always massive. My time when I was here previously, obviously watching it as a kid, it's huge. And obviously the Super League came in, and after that type thing. But it's for me, it's always to get to Wembley would be a dream. It would be like to come over here and. As a player, I didn't get to do it as a player, but to be part of it as a coach, there's no doubt that, once we do look at the Challenge Cup, we'll have a little block of, Challenge Cup to look at, and you got to keep winning those games, because otherwise you're out. So, do we want to be there 4 games time? Yeah, we do. So we'll be working as hard as we can to achieve that.
Top man, thank you very much. All the best on Friday. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, James. Thanks, mate.